Every deck is made for standing on, but there's only one that's always had a way of standing out. So if you're looking to bring more style, comfort, and creativity to your life outdoors, call on the brand that's known for making the most in outdoor living. From decking, railing, and lighting to furniture, fencing, and framing, at Trex, we're engineering what's next in outdoor living. To learn more about all of the outdoor solutions Trex has to offer, call 1-800-289-TREX or visit Trex.com. That's TREX.com.
Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. here in studio with me, and the big man, Mike Golic Sr. is in Chicago this morning, and he joins us from there. How are we doing, big boy?
I'm doing well. No complaints at all. Big game last night. Watch, it was exciting. I am in Chicago. We'll get into it a little bit later for at the end of Mike and Mike for the number of years that was going on. ESPN gave us a great gift of being able to build a playground in areas that could use that. So I'm here in Chicago today because a little later today I'll be going to Rosa G. Maddock Elementary School in Burbank, Illinois, and Chris is flying in today as well, and we're going to help them build a playground at that middle school thanks to Kaboom. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's why I'm here, but I definitely wanted to be here to talk about the game last night. But a really cool thing we're going to be doing a little later, putting a hammer to nail or whatever you do to build a playground. I doubt it'll be hammer to nail, quite honestly. But
maybe like an Allen wrench or something. Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah, I'll try not to screw it up.
Well, we like your chances. By the way, putting hammer to nail could also describe what's going on in the NBA Finals. That's sort of what we're looking at here, Junior. At this point, it's fait accompli.
Yeah, it got cemented last night, unfortunately.
Cement, something we can also use at the playground.
Yeah, more playground references, as many as we can sneak in today. But yesterday we all sat around here and we predicted a Cavs Game 3 win. We said going into the series, going back home, Game 3 would be their best chance. That groundswell of support from the home crowd, lifting up some of the Cavaliers' role players. And instead, Dad, we saw really a lot out of Kevin Durant of what we saw from LeBron James in Game 1 in that opposite road environment.
You know, and that's the issue with the Warriors is if somebody's off, somebody else makes it up. You know, the last game, you got Steph Curry making 9 threes, setting a record, and this time you got Kevin Durant going off, and we'll get into all of his numbers and what he did. I mean, he's the reason Golden State stayed in this game, as we're going to talk about. Cleveland really came out swinging and got themselves a nice lead, but it was KD all the way, and then at the end of the game, it was him providing the dagger, which was exactly what should have happened if they were going to win. It had to be Kevin Durant doing it. There's just too much talent, you know, on this team. This Cavalier team can only go so far. We saw the help they got early in this game from J.R. Smith, from Kevin Love. They were getting help from the other players. But when you're playing a team as good as Golden State, it's not going to be enough.
Well, look, there's such a deja vu feeling from what happened in Game 3 a year ago into what happened last night in Game 3 in Cleveland. We'll get into all of that. Plus, we'll be joined today by some great guests. Panthers tight end Greg Olsen will join us. Our old pal Mike Tirico of NBC Sports will drop by to talk about not only the NHL playoffs, which could end tonight, the Stanley Cup Finals, as well as the Belmont Stakes. We could have for the second time in 4 years, we could have a thank you very much. We could have a Triple Crown winner as Justify goes for it in the number 1 slot at the Belmont Stakes. We'll get into all of that, but first, let's start with what's trending and what we were talking about. The Warriors are now 1 game away from winning another NBA championship, and they became the first team in NBA history to take a 3-0 lead in consecutive NBA Finals by beating the Cavs last night, 110-102. Kevin Durant scored a career postseason high 43, Junior, while adding 13 boards and 7 assists.
Kevin Durant had the type of game that started to elevate him in those conversations about best player in the league last season, last NBA Finals. This was the eerily reminiscent one, and I know we're going to get into how his performance has kind of crescendoed as we start to now look at potential Finals MVPs. But, Dad, I've seen some stats about 30-foot threes and things of that nature for Kevin Durant that I know have to have you pretty excited.
Yeah, listen, there's going to be a lot of numbers, a lot of second spectrum numbers on this that we'll enjoy talking about. But quite honestly, and I know we're going to play the sound, so I'm going to actually preview it right here. I think what LeBron said is
sound
basically
preview.
Dead on, is you can't make a mistake against the Warriors. It's like making a mistake against the New England Patriots. They capitalize. They're too good. They don't make enough mistakes. And when you make one, they capitalize on it. And by capitalizing, they go on runs, which really just deflate you. I make the comparison all the time in basketball and football of when you think you have them and then they just make enough to get that third down or get in position for that field goal and just deflate you. And that's what they were doing because that place was hopping last night. I thought, and I'm sure you guys did too. Yep. Okay, this is what Cleveland's going to do in Game 3. They came out absolutely swinging, and they were landing punches left and right. Guys were hitting shots. You thought, all right, at some point in this game, Golden State's going to just say, fine, you got your one game. But Kevin Durant just said, nah, I think I'll take over in this one. Since Steph shot all his threes in the last game and is missing all now, I'll just make them all now.
Yeah, since we thought this is what Cleveland does, is they took their largest lead of the finals, a 13-point lead. This is actually what Golden State does because Golden State is now the first team in the last 20 postseasons to win 4 straight games when trailing by double digits in one postseason. That's going back to include the Western Conference Finals. So this team has no problem putting its foot on the gas and leaving you in the dust.
The Golden State Warriors. No lead is safe. And according to Elias, he joined Rick Barry as the only Warriors player, Kevin Durant did, with 40 points and 10 rebounds in the NBA Finals. Barry did so in 1967. So let's continue with some things that may have happened while you were sleeping. It's brought to you by Tempur-Pedic, loved by our owners and ranked highest in customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Find out why at TempurPedic.com. Oh, he's not striking out anymore. Aaron Judge, who had that horrific doubleheader, 8 strikeouts, including 5 in one game, had a 2-run homer to snap a scoreless tie in the 13th inning, and then Giancarlo Stanton followed him up. Went deep moments later as the Yankees beat the Blue Jays 3-0 for a 2-game sweep. Judge bounced back from what he called that terrible day when he went 0 for 9 with a record 8 strikeouts in that doubleheader, Junior.
So this is a big day, though, because this is what we had all really been looking for in this game. Goes late, and you get a little bit of hero ball from 2 guys that we always expected would be great, but we hadn't gotten it in the same inning yet. And Judge's home run, in addition to being the 3rd latest in a scoreless game in Yankee history, was part of the first time that Judge and Stanton had homered in the same inning so far this season. So, Dad, we're finally starting to get some of that timely payoff from these bats, as we talked yesterday about now the Yankees maybe having to go back searching for pitching around the playoff or the All-Star deadline.
And it's amazing that whenever we're doing notes about the Yankees, it's either about home runs or strikeouts. And it's usually involving the 2 guys that we're talking about all the time with Stanton and Judge. It's unreal. But here's another thing to look at. The Red Sox and the Yankees both have 40 wins. It's the first time those 2 teams had 40 wins in the first 60 games of the season. And how about this? One of these teams is going to be a wild card team. One of these teams is going to be 1 game away when they get to be the wild card of getting knocked out of the playoffs in 1 game after the season they're both are having right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the Red Sox actually have 43 wins. A lot of that is because they haven't had as many weather delays as the Yankees have had. I mean, they have 1 more loss, but they have 3 more wins. That's why the Yankees are a game back. And it's interesting. I was talking with Michael Kay on the Michael Kay Show on 98.7 New York yesterday about the possibility of big game hunting, basically what they're trying to do. But for someone to be willing to give up a prospect, they got to be out of it. And right now, nobody's really out of it. So for pitchers that they may go after, maybe Cole Hamels with the way the Rangers are struggling, but they're going to need pitching. There's no question about it with the injury to Jordan Montgomery. The question is, who can they get that will be available when their team thinks, yeah, we're not going to be doing what we thought we'd be doing. But the Yankees will absolutely be looking for pitching to go along with the big bats as they get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Well, speaking of baseball, we got problems with our guy, Shohei Ohtani.
I want you to Shohei the way.
The rookie phenom was removed from his start after 4 innings because of that blister on his pitching hand. Now, this is the 2nd time this season Shohei left the game due to a blister. The other one was April 17th against Boston. He allowed 1 run on 4 hits and 3 walks during the Angels' 4-3 win over Kansas City. But, we've seen this happen a couple times before in the past. Those blisters, as you found out in the batting cage, Junior, can be a little dicey.
I tell you what, it's a very real phenomenon right now. I'm still recovering from this devastating injury. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fully use the mouse over here on the computer yet or anything. There's a lot that you've got to factor in.
The struggle is real for you, Junior.
Much like Shohei Ohtani, Dad, I did not miss my next turn in the rotation, and neither did he last time this came up, so we'll wait and see how quickly we can make this back around. But there's a lot of Warriors out here right now. Me, Shohei, Kevin Durant, we're all just making it work.
Who would have known a couple of football players you can relate to the baseball side of it because of your minutes and minutes in the batting cage? It's pretty incredible. But this guy, I mean, listen, that was the one thing we were going to wonder about him. He's 23 years old. Some people wondered, did he come over here too early, especially after spring training? But he's sitting there at 4-1 with, what, a 3.10 ERA. We know we keep talking about the home runs. He has 6. He's given up 5. And then a worry is your first time at that age in the majors, injuries. Remember, he dealt with the ankle. He had an injury there a little bit ago. His second blister. Who knew a blister? Well, I guess you knew a blister, but I think a lot of people really that are listening and watching don't realize when you hear blister, wait a minute, he's out with a blister? Yeah, a pitcher is going to be out with a blister for what they do and how they manipulate the ball and what the effect is. So that's what to keep an eye going forward for a team that's just 4 out of the division lead right now. Is you're always talking about injury, and here you're talking about with a 23-year-old who's had kind of minor injuries that have kind of taken a little bit of time away from him.
Well, look, sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. Rich Hill, the Dodgers, he had the issue with the blister. He had to pee on his hand to do it.
Times you got to pee on it.
Have you done that yet, Junior, with your blisters?
I've not yet peed on it, although we're exploring all options right now. We never know what's going to happen over the course. It's a long show we have today, so eventually this might have to happen.
We'll get an update on what he does in the break. And
might need some help, Trey.
Well, I'm here for you. I just don't know if I'm there for you. Just want you to know that.
We'll find out.
We'll figure it out in the break. See, this is when I wish you were here, Mike, because it seems like more of a fatherly duty than something that I should be involved in. But we move on. And does it end tonight? Does it end tonight? The Stanley Cup will be in the arena as the Washington Capitals face the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Caps are 3-0 this postseason with chances to clinch in the series, all 3 of which were on the road, so all signs seem to indicate, Junior, that it might be over tonight, but this is the Capitals we're talking about.
This is the Caps, and this is the Vegas Golden Knights. They've had that magic touch all year. It would be a really lackluster finish for them now to go out with the NHL gentleman sweep that we brought over to the ice. But even more so, we talk about the Caps and the city feeling cursed. There seems to be one group in the city that's already trying to turn the page on that.
What are they doing?
I don't know how you feel about this. This, to me, could be a defining moment, Dad. I know you are always the champion of there's no such thing as curses and any of this stuff, and the Capitals and really some of their retailers in the city could help us dispel that myth once and for all.
You're right. I am not a believer in that, but let me tell you, they are testing my limits. We'll get into the paraphernalia that's already being advertised out there to be sold. But for the Golden Knights, here's the thing. I mean, they played so well, and it looks like, not certainly a chance for them to come back, not a great chance, but a chance to come back and win it. But their season has been an overwhelming. So you look at both these teams. The Golden Knights, the last time they lost 3 in a row was like the end of February and beginning of March. This season has been an unbelievable success for them, even if they lose the Stanley Cup. And for the Capitals, it's obviously history for them and something the city has been searching for a long time. So I still think good on both teams, but you're right. Washington, and we'll get into it, they are really, really testing the sports gods right now.
Have they not learned from what happened in Super Bowl 51 when Dick's Sporting Goods all over Atlanta were putting up championship paraphernalia for the Falcons? And you saw the video of them pulling that stuff down. It was unbelievable. Don't tempt fate, man. Don't do it.
I'm telling you, I kind of love it now, and I'm rooting for the Caps once and for all. Let's tear down this idea that has any impact on this at all. Let's remove that stigma from sports. I am with you guys.
Well, look, if anybody would test this limit, it would be the Caps. Again, they're up 3-1. In history of the franchise, they're only 7-5 in series in which they've had a 3-1 lead. They've lost 5 of these bad boys. So every Caps fan around is saying, don't do it. Don't tempt fate. All right, we continue here on Golic and Wingo. By the way, we're going to set a record today for dad references. So just so people understand the technological issues sometimes that we have here. Mike is in Chicago and we're here in the studio, and to make sure that he understands when I'm talking to who, I always look to Junior and say Junior, and Junior will then look to Dad and say, and Dad, what is your take? So we'll have lots of Junior and Dad references today, perhaps more than any other time in the history of the show.
Why you got to do that, man?
I'm just pointing
You're giving away the trade secrets right now. We're out here. We're supposed to be experts in the field, deft deftly handling this
And we
situation
are.
without ever letting anyone know that below the water, we're like a duck below the water. Our feet are just churning 1,000 miles an hour, man.
We just want to let people know the limitations that we're dealing with. We're making sure we're putting it all out there so they understand what we're doing to make sure we give the best show for you. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance, with more than 30 unique coverage options available. Progressive knows small business. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. Okay, I just can't get over how similar Game 3 last night of the NBA Finals was to Game 3 last year in the NBA Finals. I mean, Junior, it almost went identical. Okay, it's down 2-0, but it's home. We're going to rally. J.R. Smith scores, I think, the first 5 points of the game, including Kevin Love with a big three, and also early in that run to start it. Everything's going that way. They're up big in the first quarter, I think 11 or 12 points on more than one occasion, and then it was, 6 at the half? Then the third quarter happened. Then they get it back up to 13 sometime in the second half, and the Warriors are like, whatever, we're good.
The third quarter Warriors finally showed up in the way that we've been used to seeing in this series last night. But more than anything, Trey, I remember you brought this up in Game 1 when going into the at the end of the first half in Game 1, Steph Curry hits that big three at the buzzer to, at that point, tie that game. Last night, the Cavs had been kind of holding a double-digit lead for a lot of the first half, and Kevin Durant steps in and hits a three at the end of the first half that brings it to 6. And that might not seem like a huge difference, but at that point in time, to end the half on those strong notes, because situations, we talked about situational play a lot yesterday, regardless of the sport, and situational play, Dad, seemed to be the difference last night, forgetting if it was that moment or then coming out in the second half and what the Cavaliers weren't able to do in their shooting performance and carry over from the first half.
Yeah, we saw the Cavs win that third quarter in Game 2, but they lost it last night. Golden State outscored them 31-23, so they actually took the lead going into the fourth quarter. But, the one thing I'll say, even though I know Game 2 was a 19-point game, I do think it was competitive. Again, with 10 minutes to go, it was a 7-point game. They kept it competitive, and then Golden State pulled away. So I still think that was competitive. Certainly we know what Game 1 was. And last night, I mean, we're talking a 1-point game with under a minute, or a 3-point game. What was it? I think a 3-point game with under a minute to go. And Durant hits that dagger. So these have been competitive games. So as much, it's interesting, I'm always talking out of both sides of my mouth, is, Golden State's just too good. If one guy's off, they have another guy that can pick it up, or another guy that can pick it up, or another guy that can pick it up. And for Cleveland, you kind of cross your fingers and hope that somebody's going to pick it up and help LeBron. Yet these games have been pretty competitive. It could turn out to be a sweep, but at least these weren't all these double-digit games we were seeing in all the conference finals for a while. These have been somewhat competitive games. We'll see if Cleveland can stave off the sweep on Friday and get the one win. But so I guess I am talking out of both sides of my mouth and saying that while it's going to be a sweep and Golden State's too good, Cleveland has made these games competitive.
It'll be the most competitive sweep in NBA Finals history.
Yeah.
That's
for whatever that's worth.
Exactly. So congratulations. Here's a medium cup of coffee. But to your point, Mike, what you're talking about, Steph Curry didn't have it last night. He was 3 of 16, 1 of 10 from 3, but the three he hit was a pretty big one down the stretch. And Steve Kerr basically alluded to it. It's nice to be able to coach a team that has so many weapons.
Well, this is, the beauty of this team and the luxury that we have of having, multiple big-time scorers. There's going to be nights like this for all of them. Steph was 3 for 16, 1 for 10, but as usual, he hit a big one. He always finds a way to make big plays even on his toughest nights. But, we got a lot of guys who can score and fill it up, and they lift each other up if one of them's having a tough night. And, it's a pretty nice luxury as a coach, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, Steve, to have him be able to do that. And the similarities, again, going back to Kevin Durant, Game 3 a year ago, when he had the big three again and had the big game. He had 31 points, 9 boards, 4 assists on 10 of 18 shooting in Game 3 a year ago. And then in Game 3 last night, well, he upped himself. He had 43 points, 15 to 23 shooting, 13 rebounds, and 7 assists. I think one thing we can say with great definitiveness, Game 3 of the finals, Kevin Durant is the best player in basketball. There's no question about it.
And looks like the MVP of the finals now. That's the last real piece that we have to put in place in all of this. And I thought it was going to be the Rodney Hood game last night, 15 points off the bench after the widely debated role of Rodney Hood in the game plan last night. It was Rodney, it was JR, it was Kevin Love in the first half, and then in the second half, that all went bone dry. You looked at their performance off LeBron James passes, which seems to be the number one Cavalier stat that exists, because the only form of offense for them comes off LeBron James passes. 0 for 6 from 3 in the second half off LeBron James passes. We sat with Brian Windhorst, and he said this team has to make threes, and in the second half when they needed it, it completely fell off.
I'm going to tell you what one of the most unbelievable things to me last night in showing how dominant Kevin Durant was. I forgot at what point they mentioned it into the third quarter, the second leading scorer for Golden State was JaVale McGee. He was the second leading scorer on that team into the third quarter at some point for Golden State. And you look at the rest of the starters, I mean, they were all barely over double digits outside of Durant's 43. So that, again, just shows the different power, not only the stars, but when their role players step up, because they were missing early on, and then they got into that groove in the second quarter. I completely agree. Right at the end of the half when Durant hit it was like when Steph hit it as well. And then the third quarter they did their thing. But that, to me, is one of just shows you how good they are. Second leading scorer, JaVale McGee, and they end up winning this game.
Well, Mike, to your point, what would we say about game 2? Well, JaVale McGee and Sean Livingston aren't going to go 11 of 11 for the field. Yeah. You're right. They went 9 of 12. Okay, when those guys are going 9 of 12, and it's not like they're suddenly discovering, hey, I have this great offense. It has something to do with the defense that the Cavaliers were playing. It was horrific one more time, and coming up, one of the Hall of Famers in the NBA actually called out the Cavs for what they were doing, and more importantly, what they weren't doing defensively. We'll get into that.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
As we continue on Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Cliff is like a Zen master. I'm sometimes trying to figure out where he goes. Dexy's Midnight Runners, Senior. I don't understand that. Where did that come from? Dexy's Midnight Runners from the 80s. That's in our wheelhouse.
Cliff, I don't know. I'm with you. You try and figure out the crossover and the reasoning, and sometimes he just does it to play a song he may like, but yeah. I don't know if this is on his playlist, so I got to believe there's a reason.
Cliff, is Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen, to something you jam out to?
Man, I listen to that every day right next to Lil Wayne and all them. That's like my favorite right there.
That's right in the rotation right there. No, it's really easy for Cliff. The way our system works here at ESPN, again, to take people behind the curtain, when you go into the song library in there and you just start typing in old white guy, it just finishes with songs like that.
Come On Eileen.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It helps out.
Well, it's
a system that's designed to help us all.
It does, and it also helps because you look like the oldest white guy of all three of us.
Well, yeah,
just so
exactly.
You know. Just so you know.
It's perfectly calibrated for the show. They do a great job here at ESPN.
It works,
it's remarkable.
It works for everybody, and Cliff continues to be the Zen master messing with our minds. Okay, it is time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And Straight Talk, simply, it was all about Kevin Durant last night, but don't take my word for it. Take Stephen A's. Yeah.
I saw a superstar. I saw somebody that showed up and played like the superstar we know him to be. He's a career 27-point-per-game scorer. He can score 30 in his sleep. He dropped 43 and 13 tonight and put on an absolute show. He got absolutely no help whatsoever tonight from Steph Curry, who was absolutely awful offensively, shooting 1 of 10 from three-point range. But every time you needed something, KD gave it to you. Every time you wanted something, KD gave it to you. And even when you weren't in the mood to get it, he gave it to you anyway. And he gave it to Cleveland all night long, did what he wanted when he wanted, completely demoralized them, was hitting shots from all over the place. He was an absolute superstar tonight.
Again, you can't play stuff like that from Stephen A enough. Well, even when you didn't want it, he gave it to you again. And what a difference we're seeing in him from game one. In game one, people are like, well, what was wrong with Kevin Durant? You know, LeBron and company should have won that game. The Warriors got lucky. Game one, he was 8 of 22 from the field, had 26 points. In the games since, he's averaging 34.5 points on 25 of 37 shooting. The Slim Reaper has showed up big over the last few games.
By the way, it's worth noting at this point in time that we can't forgive Kevin Durant, because while we all wanted to anoint him with one of the better nicknames in sports, he wanted to be called the servant and thus deserves every bit of criticism that we want to lob his way at that point. Soft nickname. Soft nickname.
I guess this is the numbers portion of the show, because what he's played in 13 or 14 finals games, and he's over 25 points in all of those games. And when did we start? Again, here we go with Second Spectrum, Trey, so you can go ahead and hit that.
Do it.
When did we start measuring 30-footers? We're measuring 30-footers now. We hit 4 it's not just threes. Now it's, okay, how far behind the line are you in the threes? So he hits 4 30-footers, more than any team has done in the postseason in the last 20 seasons, and only one other person has hit multiple 30-footers in a game, and that was his teammate Steph, who did it in game one. So while those are incredible numbers, I guess I go back to the original question, when the hell do we start measuring 30-footers? Is 32-footers next? Are people going to keep going back further to try and get them measured as well?
Yes, we started measuring when we had a company called Second Spectrum. That's exactly when we started it. So it really was just lather, rinse, repeat from Game 3 a year ago. The Cavs late last night in the fourth quarter, Durant with that big three-pointer from plus 30-plus feet on the left wing, almost the exact same spot he did a year ago. And for LeBron James, he was like, dude, I've seen this act before.
The one he made tonight was about 4 or 5 feet behind the one he made last year. Last year, we're up 2. He pulled up pretty much right at the three-point line. I got a great contest, but he made it. Tonight, they're up 3. He come off a pick and roll, and he just stopped behind it, pour about 4 or 5 feet behind the three-point line. So, same wing, different location, but you definitely tip your hat. I mean, that's what he does. He's a scorer. He's an assassin, and that was one of those assassin plays right there.
You look at every shot that Kevin Durant takes in the course of games like this, and you realize that he's largely indefensible.
Yeah.
The majority of his shots this game were contested shots that he was shooting into. For anyone else who's not 7 foot tall, pulling up at a spot that just by nature of elevating makes his shot both unblockable and really gives him a clear line of sight. The reason we have those 30-plus foot stats, mostly to help me because my spatial understanding of distances from the hoop is really, really underdeveloped. But it's to remind us that what they're doing is uncommon. Kevin Durant being able to pull up there with that much ease, Steph Curry being able to toss these shots from so far beyond the arc is uncommon, and yet they make it seem commonplace. And it's terrifying. I don't know what we're supposed to do with this anymore.
Well, I don't know if you can do anything with it, because you look at the defense on that. I mean, he gets a screen and he's wide open. I mean, what are you going to do? You can't play up on all of these guys. Cleveland's already not a great defensive team, and they have multiple shooters. Now, they weren't as hot last night as they've been outside of Durant, but they have multiple weapons, so it's tough to play up on them all. So Kevin Durant, even though everybody's sitting there saying, my God, he's open, but he's 30 feet away. I mean, you probably don't think you need to body up at 30 feet away, but for some of these guys, you absolutely do. And it's interesting because in Durant, remember early in this series, it was like, hey, where's Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant's got to start playing better. It was like, hey, is Steph Curry going to get his first, finals MVP? Is he finally going to get one? And then everybody starts talking about, well, if they lose, LeBron is playing so well, he's going to get the MVP. Well, if they sweep and Durant has another big game, I think it could be Durant's, because Game 3, this was the big one last night. If Cleveland could have made that thing 2-1 going into Friday, another game in Cleveland could have made it interesting, and Kevin Durant was the one who slammed the door on that. So if he has another big game in Game 4 and they sweep, the MVP could be going to him again.
Well, it feels like it's going that way. Look, again, 25 of 37 in the last 2 games. And if you want to talk about notable players to be named postseason MVP in a losing effort, that would be Jerry West, 1969 NBA Finals. He averaged almost 38 points, lost in 7 games. Bobby Richardson, 1960 World Series MVP. The Yankees lost in a Game 7 walk-off homer to the Pirates. Chuck Howley, Super Bowl 5, the only loser at a Super Bowl to be the MVP. That's what we're looking at if LeBron James somehow is named the MVP. But I think you're right. It certainly looks like Kevin Durant is making the case for, guys, talk whatever you want, but if I play this, if I play like this, I'm getting the MVP award again.
If you look at Brian Windhorst did a great article talking about the changing of the guard and the LeBron James Kevin Durant rivalry. Their stats in the finals since Kevin Durant joined the Warriors have been eerily similar and almost identical. So you can understandably justify Kevin Durant. We don't have to have that conversation about Kevin Durant being the best player in the NBA now. LeBron James is still firmly in that mold. But it's also interesting when you look at this series where we are now, because it seems like we've got a lot of foregone conclusions left. It's not if, it's just when the Warriors go ahead and win this series.
Sweep or gentleman's sweep at this point.
Exactly. It's basically, Kevin Durant seems like the pencil-in vote for Finals MVP. And yet we sit here and we're going to look back post-mortem when we kind of mentioned it off the top of the show. But the Cavaliers legitimately should have won Game 1 and were up by 13 at home last night and could be up 2-1 in this series and instead are probably going to lose in straight sets.
Yeah, so, I mean, 2 variable winnable games and they're about to get swept. So as Senior alluded to, it's definitely going to be the most competitive sweep in NBA Finals history. There's no question about it. But I'll just throw this out there because, look, he's not going to win and he's not going to win the Finals MVP. But let me just give you LeBron James's numbers through 3 games. 37.7 points per game, 9 rebounds, almost 11 assists, 53% shooting from the field, 35% from deep. What if I told you that before the finals began, those would be his numbers through the first 3 games? Would you say, oh yeah, they'd definitely be down 3 games to none? Would you have said that?
Probably, because he averaged a triple-double last year and they were still down 3 games to none.
It's unbelievable. Mike, he just gets lost in what's going on when you don't realize how well he's playing.
Well, and this is where we're going to go, guys. Obviously, we're going to keep talking about this game some, but you know where this page is getting turned to now. What happens next? While we can sit here and say it may be a very competitive sweep, and Golden State did get taken to 7 games by Houston, and then Chris Paul was injured in that, but you still, obviously, they're the favorite, at least while that team is together for another couple of years. You know where this page is going.
Yep.
What's going to happen with LeBron? All the reports are starting to come in more and more on what's going to happen with LeBron. So that's where we're going next, is where is LeBron going to go? Will he stay in Cleveland? And we're starting to get more numbers in on where he could fit on teams, what would happen if he stayed in Cleveland, and that's going to become the conversation.
Yeah, that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. I think Brian Windhorst said it best when we were in Cleveland the other day. LeBron has normalized greatness. Triple-double, yeah, but he wasn't really at his best. Man, get out of here. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, including Panthers tight end Greg Olsen coming up at the top of the next hour.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true.
But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com. Sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. Rich Hill of the Dodgers, he had the issue with the blister. He had to pee on his hand to do it.
Times you got to pee on it.
Have you done that yet, Junior, with your blisters?
I've not yet
You should
peed on
think
it,
about
although
it.
we're exploring all options right now. It's a long show we have today, so eventually this might have to happen. Might need some help, Trey.
Well, I'm here for you.
Sports Center brought to you by Shell. Premium engine performance starts with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Get unsurpassed protection against gunk, unbeatable protection against corrosion, and our best protection against wear.
All right, Golic and Wingo here with you. Mike Golic Jr. in studio with me. Mike Golic Sr. in Chicago for what is a very special reason. We'll get into more details about that in just a bit. But I have to say, I think the first hour of the show has been all about pulling back the curtain. When that music started, that in-bump, Junior, you looked like you wanted to kill somebody. What was that all about?
Nope. We are moving far away from this one right now and going back to the NBA Finals last night. Charles Barkley had some very pointed words.
Wow.
Yeah, apparently I've pulled at a wound here that I am not aware of.
I am helping every one of us keep our jobs. Run screaming in the other direction right now. Run. Play the Charles Barkley sound. Right now.
I am clearly not letting this go anytime soon.
No, I promise you, it benefits all of us to let this go and move in the other direction.
Actually, I think from that look, I think you're the only one that's probably in trouble, but we'll figure that out going forward. Anyway, literally steam out of his ears.
Charles Barkley, man.
Like a cartoon.
It's like this Barkley take.
His head was radiating steam. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was like an emoji. He was a human emoji.
Rolling on a Thursday.
I'm going to get to the bottom of this. Here we go. But to save Junior's career as a radio personality here at ESPN, here's what Charles Barkley had to say about the Cavs defense last night.
I've never seen a team that dumb in my life. And I mean that seriously.
I mean that lovingly.
No, seriously.
I mean that with all the warmth.
The play that Dominique and Dennis Scott, we talked about it before the game.
Yeah.
I bet how many you think? 10, 12,
Oh,
15,
I thought more than that. At least.
Layups.
Yes.
On a simple slip screen. For the same play to work that many times, that's just stupidity. And you have to blame the players to a certain degree and the coaches. To run a simple play like that and get a layup every single time, that's just dumb and stupid.
Well, I'll give Charles credit. He's being his authentic self. But there is a problem with that, Mike. I mean, he did. I mean, we've seen this from the Cavs time and time again. Outside of Clay and Steph, who struggled, the collective rest of the Warriors shot 65%.
Well, I mean, just go back to game 2. Livingston and McGee were 11 for 11, and because they were 11 for 11 because they were all layups or dunks for the same reason. I mean, we know the defense is bad for the Cavs, but a lot of times it was leaving guys wide open for shots because of whether it was a late rotation or lack of hustle or lack of getting back in transition defense, whatever it was. But these are layups. There's nothing worse than a wide open guy running down the middle of the lane for a layup. At least if it's open for a 3, you can hope he misses. Not many people are missing layups unless I'm playing in a celebrity game, that are going to actually miss an easy layup or a dunk. So it's horrific, but it's nothing new. We've been talking about this Cleveland defense forever not being very good. If they're going to win, they have to do a whole lot of scoring, which LeBron does, but you don't get enough help from the other players, and then Golden State scores too much. You're never going to – I doubt Cleveland's going to get a win in this series. If they do, and we're going to say, well, yeah, that was because of defense they got that win.
Yeah, it's always going to come back to what they're able to do offensively. And last night, you got enough from Kevin Love's been a 20-plus point guy for all 3 games this series so far. J.R. Smith finally got in double digits. You got the wild card. We needed someone off the beaten path. Rodney Hood, after all the conversation the other day, goes out there for 15 points. The difference in a lot of ways, and I understand that we're not in the business of criticizing this guy right now because of the nature of his performances, but LeBron James didn't shoot well by his standard for this last night. That outside jump shot that we have seen when this team is truly dominant, it's when LeBron James is hitting that shot from the outside. Last night it was not falling. There was one big 3 towards the end of the game, but other than that, if he wasn't getting into the rim, he wasn't getting it at all.
Yeah, 1 of 6 from three-point land, 13 to 28 from the floor. But I think what you just said sums it up. This team isn't dominant unless LeBron James goes completely nuts. I mean, that's the only way this thing works. And normalizing greatness, again, what we talked about, a triple-double, 33, 10, and 12. But you're right. Yeah, it seemed like early on in that game, he was trying to get everybody else involved. Some days he just says, I'm going to take over, I'm going to do it. Last night, it seemed like early on in that contest, he wanted to get other people involved, and it was working. They were up 12, 11 in the first half. But once again, Golden State, just too deep, too many options, and a guy named Kevin Durant who absolutely would not be denied last night. All right, coming up, Mike Golic, Sr., has something in common with LeBron James physically. Words I never thought would come out of my mouth. We will explain that when we come back on Golic and Wingo. Stay with us.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here in studio. Mike Golic Sr. in Chicago, where he is doing something very special, and we'll get into that a little bit later on the show. But we did find something that both you, Junior, and your father have in common physically with LeBron James, or at one point had in common, or currently do have in common with LeBron James.
I have a lot in common with LeBron James.
Not really. But let's let Dad sort of explain what we're talking about here.
Yeah, after the first segment, I got a whole bunch of tweets and emails about you look like you were on a bender, your eyes all red, and it's all red because I got scratched by a dog. I've been with a lot of dogs. I was in Cleveland, saw my brother Greg and his wife Angel, their dog. My brother Bob, his wife Karen, they have 2 dogs. Sydney and her roommate last night in Chicago, another dog. Had been around dogs for the last couple of days, and one of them, while I was roughhousing with him, caught me in the eye with his paw. So that's why it's red. I do feel. I'm wondering now, I'm going to go out after we build this playground that we're going to talk about a little later, if there's a basketball hoop on it. I'm wondering if I got other LeBron abilities because I have a red eye like LeBron has a red eye.
No.
As someone who's been sitting with LeBron's hairline for a while, those abilities are not transferable.
Well, I'm just curious now, Mike, that you said that. How many dogs have you been with? I mean, it seems like it's a lot of dogs.
I've been with a number of dogs, Trey. Okay. Yes, I have. I'm not going to lie. Yes, I have. I really shouldn't say any more about that. I've been with a dog, and the dog scratched me.
There you go. Well, you know what? Good for the dog, because sometimes you just have whatever you have at your defense, sometimes you need to use. We'll get into that a little bit later. Again, this could be a really epic weekend in sports, starting with tonight. We could have the Stanley Cup Final decided tonight. We could have the NBA Finals decided Friday, and we could have another Triple Crown winner on Saturday. So we're looking at a pretty good 3-day run here in sports. But one other thing that we always like to talk about is football, because let's be honest, it's the good stuff. Oh, play those trumpets one more time. And if we're going to talk a little football, let's bring in someone who knows a thing or two about football and is one of the best in the business at what he does, and that's Carolina Panthers tight end Greg Olsen. Joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, get triple action protection for optimal engine performance with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. That is a lot to say about a certain type of gasoline, but it's the really good stuff. And Greg Olsen is part of the really good stuff, and he joins us now this morning. Greg, how's it going?
I'm doing great, guys. It's always awesome to come on with you guys.
Yeah, we were happy to have you on during Super Bowl week, and we're happy to have you on now. So this is that weird time in the NFL season, Greg, where we're in the OTAs where you can do stuff and you really can't do stuff. But it's important to be together with your team. There's not a lot of physical contact. So just for people that don't know or fans of football, what are you guys really working on during these OTA sessions right now?
I think right now, throughout the league, everything's about installs. You start back from, the base plays, the base offense, formations, as silly as it sounds, where you stand in the huddle. And I think, across the league, it's pretty consistent. Everyone, starts from ground zero. I think everybody, wants to make sure that they don't skip over anything. You don't assume that the guys understand anything. You almost treat it like no one's ever heard anything before. And then when you factor in, we do have a new offensive coordinator and kind of some new pieces. We've really started from scratch, and I think it's been fun, especially for some of the guys that have been here for a while, to kind of go back to the beginning and start at ground level and work our way up, and then you go out on the field and you get a lot of opportunities to rep those plays. Maybe some plays that you don't get a ton of opportunities to rep during the season because everything's so game plan oriented. So it is a good time of the year. Some of the older guys sometimes, kind of moan a little bit about it, but it really is, when you take a look at it, a huge starting point and building block for what we need to accomplish before we get down to training camp.
And Greg, if you're going back to square one, a lot of rule changes this offseason between the catch rule and a lot of the newly implemented and much talked about helmet rules. How has that been as a topic of conversation and really a topic of what's being taught right now during OTAs?
Yeah, the coaches and during camp, the referees will come in every year and they really take their time and do a good job trying to really explain as clearly as possible, as clearly as the rules sometimes allow, exactly what they're going to be officiating, what they're looking for, and what changes to those rules or what gray areas of those rules, lead to sometimes the biggest controversy. So we try to eliminate that, and as players, the easiest way to do that is to not leave it in the referee's hands. For me, more, relevant would be the catch rule is, hold on to it. Don't let it become controversial. Don't let it be gray whether or not you held it or not. And those are all things we really harp, catching the ball clean in traffic, catching the ball going to the ground. I mean, all that stuff starts this early in the off season, and the idea being you want to build those habits, and when it comes time to play in real games, it's not the first time you've done it. You've been doing it now for a few months. So that's the idea behind that. So we're working on all of that, and especially for some of the young guys who haven't been through it before, these are very valuable reps that you don't really ever get back.
Talking to Greg Olsen, Carolina Panthers tight end, former player at the U many, many years ago. He'd been in the league 12 years. So players like yourself, Greg, and players in the league now, I call players in that transition of things you used to be able to get away with on the field, they're penalties now. And a lot has to do with, obviously, the hits to the helmet. We'll find out this year how the refs are going to call that. But how difficult has that been for players like yourself who have been able to play one way and now have to change that kind of midstream? Have you seen really good situations and examples of guys who are really changing the way they play the game?
Yeah, I mean, I remember vividly early in my career as rookie, second-year player, there was times you would go across the middle, go up for a ball, and whether you had a chance to catch it or not, you knew when you extended up, you were really opening yourself up to some punishment. You're really opening yourself up to, at the time, what would be clean and legal hits. But now you do have that protection, and you can really tell the emphasis that defensive players feel. And again, I'm not saying it's easy for them. I know sometimes, people want to say those are hits to the head, and you got to avoid them. But at some point, they can only do so much. But as an offensive player who, through the years, has been hit his fair share of times, it is nice to know in the back of your head that in the event the guy does not, avoid hitting you and, take an illegal shot, at the very least you get a penalty out of it. So, those things do matter. I mean, and not even safety rules. I remember my first ever touchdown against the Green Bay Packers would not be a touchdown 12 years later. I caught the ball as I was up in the air catching the ball in the end zone. The defender pushed me out of bounds. And at the time, in 2007, it was deemed if you were forced out of bounds during a catch that you would have landed in bounds otherwise. There was a judgment call by the officials, and it was ruled a catch. And now today they've taken that gray area out, and it would be very clear that you land out of bounds and it's incomplete, and you move on to the next play. So, sometimes the rules change hurt you, sometimes they help you. It kind of all depends on what side of the rule you're on.
Well, I think most defenders would play. They're mostly on the offensive side of the ball, but I hear what you're saying. Carolina Panthers tight end Greg Olsen is with us. He's doing some stuff with Fan Chest. We'll get to that in a minute, but I do have to ask, you're in your 12th season, getting ready for it, and what you're wanting to do after this. I know there was some talk about potentially maybe doing the Monday night gig on ESPN. How close were those discussions? What were those discussions about?
Yeah, I mean, those discussions, became somewhat tangible. I came up to Bristol and spent the day up there, and that was pretty well, chronicled for a while. There was a little uproar and a little bit of buzz about that. They brought up a handful of guys. Of course, they settled on Jason Witten, who, I couldn't think any more highly of if I wanted to. But it was cool. I got to spend the day with Joe Tessitore and the production staff over there Monday Night Football and kind of go through the ropes. And, for me, it really became a point. It was just a great learning experience. I don't have a ton of experience. I did that Fox game last year during my bye week, and that was really my first ever exposure to, game analyst and color, and commentary and whatnot. And so the opportunity to have another dry run at it behind closed doors for a network like ESPN was a great opportunity. And, we had discussions with, some of the other job openings with some of the other networks that were available, but when it came down to it, I didn't feel like it was my time to walk away quite yet. I still felt like I could play at a high level for a few more years. The team kind of echoed that with, trying to work out an extension, and that's kind of where things settled. But it was great to even be in consideration. It was great to even be in those talks, and I enjoyed working with Joe and kind of picking his brain a little bit, and that whole production crew. So it was an interesting off season, but nonetheless a very, I think, worthwhile one.
So we're assuming then that's the next act for Greg Olsen. When you're done, you're going to be doing television.
I think it's hard to say. I think, you guys know this is a hard business. I think it's very easy for all ex-athletes to just assume, hey, I played for a long time, or I know football, or, whatever the case may be, I'm going to have jobs. There's only so many of those jobs available, and there's only so many of those jobs that become open. And I think that's why we've seen now in the last couple of years guys that probably could have kept playing, with Jason Witten and the year before with Romo, and, guys like myself at least going through the process of examining it. Those jobs don't come around very often, and you'd be lying to yourself if you think that you can, pick your time to leave the game, but also pick your job that you transition into. There's not a lot of guys that hold those keys. So I don't live in any kind of la-la land with that. It's something that I would like to do. It's something I've had a lot of cool opportunities to test out even prior to retirement. But, there's no guarantees what's available. There's a lot of other very competitive, smart people in the sports world that also want those jobs. So it's you guys know this is no sure thing. It's a very competitive and difficult world to crack into, and you got to earn it.
Talking to Greg Olsen, Carolina Panthers tight end, here on behalf of Fanchest. And Greg, I can speak for myself when I say it is highly competitive, so let me get one more contract in before you come and dip a toe into our world over here. It'd be greatly appreciated.
I think you guys are good. I think I've listened to you guys for a long time. I think you guys got this market cornered. I think you're doing all right.
Winner. There we go. Flattery. It'll get you a long way in this industry. Greg, switching gears a little bit, we know it's been in the news a ton. The Eagles' White House visit canceled after a number of players opted to not go. We know as far as it came to the protest during last season, your guys' team, not a lot of involvement in that, but what's the conversation been like as the NFL's implemented their new rule about the anthem policy beforehand and just about the overall landscape of social activism right now? What's the conversation in your guys' locker room as one of the team leaders?
I think over the last, year or two, while a lot of our guys hadn't maybe be, heavily involved in the actual anthem protest and the kneeling and whatnot, our guys have been very actively involved in the cause and in the movement, behind the scenes and hands-on approach. And, I think that, some people feel like that's the approach. I think right now the hard thing is there is no right or wrong answer. That the entire protest, the entire movement has been portrayed as two very polarizing sides where, I don't think either side wants to be. And when we talk about it amongst players and we talk about it amongst, each other with guys that we trust and whatnot, and I think everyone does come to the conclusion that right now it's unfortunate that there's only two scenarios. There's, I'm going to take a knee because I believe very strongly in this process, and unfortunately those guys, their voices aren't being heard because they're being labeled as unpatriotic and unthankful and ungrateful, and I don't think that's the objective of anybody. And then on the other side, the people who do feel strongly about standing for the anthem and whatnot are all of a sudden they're deemed to be patriots, but they're also deemed to be insensitive and not sympathetic towards this movement, and that's not what those guys want either. So I think until there is some sort of middle ground and there is some sort of way to paint these people for what they're really trying to get accomplished on both sides, I think it's just hard because I don't think it's the label that anybody wants. But unfortunately, those are the only two labels that people are really given right now, and I think it's kind of diluting the entire purpose of how this whole thing started.
Let's just hope the lines of communication stay open. That's really the only way things get solved is by people actually talking to one another. Going to get to Fanchest in just a second, but I got to ask. I saw there was just an event, Kicking It with Cam, a celebrity kickball tournament where you had a lot of celebrities there. You would think, that's a kid game that you guys would be having a lot of fun. But word is Cam Newton got pretty intense and pretty competitive in this thing.
Oh, he does every year. He's been doing this now. Maybe 2-3 years, and he gets a lot of good guys to come out for a lot of guys on the team. Some of athletes and football players across the leagues. But the team he was on, they got off to a little bit of a slow start, and they weren't as good as maybe Cam was planning on, and he was not thrilled. We'll put it that way. He was having a rough morning there on the kickball fields. But again, like you said, it's a great fun sport to play. Guys really get into it. It's a sight to be seen, that's for sure.
Let me put it this way. Having gone down and been the MC for a couple of those Cam Newton fan fests, they take it very seriously. I've witnessed that firsthand a couple of times. There is no quarter asked for and none given on the kickball field with Cam Newton and everything that he puts together there. That's a great thing that Cam does for kids, not only in the Charlotte area, but also in Atlanta where he's from. And I know as Greg Olsen, the Panthers tight end, is with us now, you're involved with Fan Chest to do some great things as well. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've worked with Fan Chest now for a few years, and they're really the ultimate, kind of gift provider for families with people that are huge sports fans like we all are. And around Father's Day, they're running a promotion called Mr. Fan Chest. You get to go online, fanchest.com, recommend your own father. I went on and filled out the application the other day. My father is who got me into the game of football. He was my football coach from the time I could play at 5 or 6 years old, and was the head varsity football coach of our local high school team for 40 years. So I got my learn, so I went on, nominate him, and anybody else can go on and nominate their father and tell them why they deserve the recognition. And the winner will receive 2 tickets to their game of their choice of their favorite team, Fan Chest box, a chest with their favorite, memorabilia and merchandise, and just a lot of cool giveaways and prizes. And just it's a fun thing that they do around Father's Day each year, because as we all know, that's who we're trying to recognize the fathers, and Golic Jr. knows all about that, as I do. And it's a cool way to kind of put your dad out there and tell him how much you appreciate him.
Well, so Junior, you going to do it now? I think you kind of have to do
Greg,
it now.
I really appreciate you putting me in this bind on air right now.
Yeah, no pressure. No pressure. Now you're all set.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Greg. Really appreciate it.
See, now he's not going to do it. Unbelievable. Greg, you're the best, man. Always good having you on, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road when the season starts, okay?
Always enjoy it. Thanks, guys.
You got it. So are you really not going to nominate your dad now?
Yeah,
I mean, he's why you're here. You know that, right?
Yeah, no, I say he's not physically here right now, and I know he'll forget about this by the time he gets back to Connecticut.
No, he won't. I didn't want to say anything, but he pretty much said it all. I would say the ball is in your court. The ball is in Jake's court. The ball is in Sydney's court. Let's see what you do with it. Will you dribble well, or you would dribble off your foot out of bounds and blow it?
I airmailed a lot of snaps back in my day. That's probably how this one's going to go.
Well, at least you're honest about it.
We were all at the Stanford game.
At least you're honest about it. We were all at the Stanford game. Way to bring everybody in on that one, my friend.
Yeah, no.
Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. And, we've had him on the show a bunch of times, and it certainly seems like, and he was being very, genuflecting and being very humble about it. But I do think that Greg has a terrific future in broadcasting when his career is done.
Yeah, it's interesting because everyone comes to it a different way. Like Greg mentioned, that not everyone has the ability to call their own shots about not only when they retire, but also the job that they walk into. I mean, you want to talk about a further cry from that dad at the end of your career, the way your football career ended and the way your sports broadcasting career began is really the most emblematic and the furthest apart from what Greg was getting ready to embark on.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I was a forced retirement. Basically, nobody called. So I was done playing football.
You didn't announce your retirement. You were retired.
That's exactly right. Greg is going to be able to announce his retirement and kind of do it his way. And I know look at what we've seen in the last couple of years. Guys who still could have played. Tony Romo, I know he was dealing with the injury situation. It would have been risky to go back out there, but he could have and chose the booth. And same with Jason Witten, who really contemplated going back onto the field, and he could have and chose the booth. Greg Olsen chose to come back and play a little bit. And just a quick note on him, because you mentioned it, Trey. This is, and a lot of guys in the NFL, a lot of professional athletes are really, really good guys. Yep. And I always always caution when I was certainly done playing, even when I was playing, talking to kids and saying, be careful who you look up to, if it's going to be an athlete or something, because a lot of times you don't know about them, so be careful of what you're looking up to. You don't have to say that with a guy like Greg Olsen. I mean, how he's handled himself as a professional, as a father, as a husband, and what he's gone through, with the health issues, certainly with his kids as well. And how he's handled it. He is one of the best guys out there and does so much, as a lot of guys do, giving back to the community. So certainly one of the good ones out there who is going to have his choices whenever he decides to hang it up.
That was a great point, but as I'm staring at you, all I'm looking at is that eye now. All I'm seeing is that eye. It's like I can't. It's like a black hole that's sucking me in. I can't stop watching. But you're right. Greg Olsen is absolutely one of the best, and perhaps he just maybe should have played for the Cowboys, and he definitely would have got a broadcasting job. But that's a separate issue. That's a separate issue entirely.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Golic Wingo podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
At Trex, we know there's a place for wood in your backyard. We recommend the fire pit. But when it comes down to choosing the right material for your next deck, look no further than the superior beauty and durability of the world's #1 premium decking brand. Trex delivers the look of wood without all of the work and the worry, and it's made from 95% recycled materials, which makes it the right choice for your backyard 100% of the time. To learn how to make Trex your next deck, visit Trex.com to order samples.
All right, Golic and Wingo with you on ESPN Radio and ESPN News, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. here in studio. Mike Golic Sr. is in Chicago, and we'll get to what he's doing in Chicago in a little bit, and it's a really, really good thing that we're all proud of. But I think we all can agree at times that Twitter seems like a torrent of negativity, right? It's just everybody saying, you stink, you're terrible, all this kind of stuff. But it's an important tool to use sometimes to promote things you're doing. But there are some good things that can happen on Twitter. For example, last Sunday I was in Detroit. On my way coming back from the Detroit Grand Prix to get back to do the show on Monday. And as we all know, having flown through Detroit, the Delta Terminal in the Detroit airport is one of the 8 wonders of the world. It is absolutely fantastic. So I put out there on Twitter, hey, I always love being in the Detroit airport, the Delta Terminal. It's absolutely fabulous. And about a minute after I put up that tweet, I got a text from someone that says, where are you? I'm in the airport as well. And it turned out to be our old pal Mike Tirico. So we sat down, had a bite to eat, had a great conversation, and that's a nice way of saying we're delighted to be joined on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line right now by Mike Tirico of NBC Sports, who will host Saturday's Belmont Stakes at 4 p.m. Eastern on NBC as Justify goes for the Triple Crown. But, of course, Mike also worked the 2 of the first 4 Stanley Cup final games and Game 5 tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern on ABC. And for many years, he called NBA games and NBA final games right here on ESPN Radio. Mike, good morning. How are you this morning?
Going to no extent to book a guest for the show. Trey, traveling, his day off, just the kind of guy you are. It's very impressive. It's good to be with all of you, including Mike Golic Sr. Can I just call you Senior, Mike?
Yes, you can absolutely call me Senior. You've called me, when we work together, you've called me worse, but we'll leave that for another time. No worries.
That's the off-air conversations that we're having.
Yes. Great to be with you guys.
It is really great to have you, Mike. And again, it was great to see you Sunday, but so much to get into. And let's start with the NBA Finals, because again, you were the voice of the NBA Finals for ESPN Radio for all those years and did a great job calling the games for us. It just seems like there's nothing that the Cavs can do to avoid the inevitable at this point. And the depth that Golden State can roll out is ridiculous. On a night when Steph Curry goes 1 of 10 from 3, they still walk away with a big win on the road.
You're exactly right, Trey. And you played in the Sports Center coming in, Mark Kestisher's call, which was just an awesome call because Mark pointed out the Durant big shot from almost the same spot right as he was dribbling into that shot, calling the game with my great pal Hubie Brown. And Mark was dead on, and Durant was dead on. He was great last night. Steph Curry was great the night before. And just in those 2 games, you see the difference. LeBron has nobody else who can be great. They can be good, but nobody else who can be great. So on a night when Curry didn't have it, And Cleveland may have blown out Golden State by 18 or 20, if not for one of these other incredible athletes on the planet playing for Golden State. Kevin Durant has one of those finals all-time games to remember, and they're not going to lose now, and they're going to be champions 3 of the last 4 years, and Durant will have back-to-back. And you may say, yeah, he had to go there to get it, but he's the reason that they're getting these 2 titles, a huge reason. So it will not be an asterisk. It'll be 2 trophies with great respect, at least for me, for Durant once this series ends up.
And so, Mike, where does it go from here? We've seen that kind of dominance. You talk about how it's basically unavoidable when you can trot out this many potent weapons. So now what does LeBron James and the rest of the league really do this offseason to sort of try and counteract this?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of the things I'm enjoying right now is that I don't have to wade into this cesspool of what's going to happen next. Where is he going to go? There are so many options. The Philadelphia option seems to be one that fits. The Lakers option continues to get more buzz and more hype. I think when we step back, Mike, it's 15 incredible years, and the 15th year has been about as good as we've seen. When you think about how little supporting cast he has, and I don't mean to disrespect some of these guys, but just for example, there's a play that Durant has the ball, gets it to Curry, throws it in the corner on the left side. Draymond Green goes in for a dunk late game. J.R. Smith leaves his man, and Draymond comes wide open. It's another small mental mistake as you go through. Nobody could take a big shot those final few possessions for Cleveland. They made sure LeBron didn't. He just deserves, at this level, the way the game is played, because of the quality of his play, to have somebody else to go with him. Is that person in L.A. if Paul George can fit there? The Houston scenario is one that, just as a basketball fan, I don't see those 3. I see them as pals and playing together. I just don't see it systemically working as well. But the East has been the path, and I would be intrigued if he leaves the East and goes out west to try to battle these other super teams in the West on the way to the finals as opposed to in the finals.
And Mike, along those lines, we've seen players in the past go to other teams, but it was the teams that would make the trade. In today's NBA, we know the players can control it all. So from that standpoint, in your mind, does it hurt legacies, especially for a guy like LeBron who's going to go down as the best or second best player ever? Cleveland, Miami, Cleveland, and then whatever team, if it's a different team next year, moving around to try and create that team to win championships. Does that diminish anything to you?
It alters, but it's a different world. You guys just played the soundbite in the Sports Center coming in with Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant said, well, that's what superstars do. And he's right. But nobody 15, 20 years ago called themselves a superstar in a post-game soundbite, relatively speaking. And it's not knocking him. It's just times have adjusted, and we have to adjust with it. I mean, would you like to see it organically happen where guys stay with one team and do it? Yeah. And that's part of why I think this Golden State team was always appreciated, because as they came along and the style they played with Clay and Draymond and Steph, all drafted, not number 1 or number 2 picks, drafted in the lottery, but came together. They acquire Iguodala the way you would acquire a veteran. But then once Durant comes, it kind of changes the way you view the teams. But that is just the way business is done right now. It is a different world. It's a different style. These guys are doing it. It provides entertaining basketball at the top of the league. I think in general it hurts the depth of the league, but overall I think fans are enjoying seeing these super teams play together. So be it. It's all good. I think the legacy will be just fine, especially when you look at Durant winning 2 now and being a key reason why they've won the 2. Assuming they win the 1 more game of these next 4.
I think we're all safe with that assumption at this point, as nobody's ever come back from down 3 games to none in an NBA series, let alone an NBA Finals. As Mike Tirico is with us, who does a little bit of everything for NBC Sports and does such a great job with it. This is obviously a busy couple of days in the NBC Sports world. We got what's going on with potentially a Stanley Cup closeout tonight. And then Saturday, we could have the second Triple Crown winner in 4 years, which is interesting, Mike, because it had been so long between Affirmed in 1978 and American Pharoah in 2015, and the tension and the excitement was palpable. Everybody waiting for the Belmont Stakes on Saturday in 2015. Now that it has happened more recently, what do you expect the atmosphere to be like on Saturday?
Trey, I think it's a little bit different. I do. I don't think there's the same buzz or anticipation. There were a dozen or so, I think it's 13 near misses along the way after 78 and Affirmed, and until you got to American Pharoah. And the one I think that probably changed the prism a little bit was California Chrome. People remember that horse in 2014. Yep. Their ownership group was unique. A lot of people love California Chrome, and there were fans that call themselves Chromies. And that had a huge rating, and then had the disappointment of the horse not winning. Tonalist ended up winning, and Chrome finished fourth in 2014. But then American Pharoah did it the next year, and I think that whole "it's impossible to do" was taken away. I'm looking at it this way, and it's not selling it, it's just the fact. If it happens twice in 4 years, it doesn't seem as big a deal. But if it's the second time it's happened in 40 years,
right,
which would be the case if Justify wins, then it's a really big deal. Things don't happen just twice in 40 years in sports. So it doesn't take away the significance, even though maybe the build-up to it feels a little bit different this time around, because we just saw it 3 years ago.
Yeah, no question. And Justify is now going to be the 14th horse to attempt to win the Triple Crown. Since 1978, American Pharoah, as we said, came through at the Belmont, and Justify in 2015, and Justify the 5th horse to win the Derby and the Preakness with an undefeated record entering the Belmont Stakes. Only Seattle Slew in 77 was able to finish that off and take the Triple Crown. So my advice to anybody that's ever flying through the Delta Airport, put it out there on Twitter. In Detroit, you never know who you're going to run into. Mike, it was great catching up with you on Sunday. Great to have you on the show. Always good to listen to the great work you do at NBC, and we'll look forward to what could be a special weekend at the Belmont Stakes.
Looking forward to it. Great to catch up with all you guys. Golic, you take care of your old man, will you please, Mikey?
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
thanks,
you
Mike.
got it. See you guys. Great catching up.
Oh, great. Always great. It was just so great. You know, you put that out there. He's like, where are you? And he came through security, had a great time. It's just good to chop it up with a guy who you've known for a long time and now is in a different venue.
I'm surprised you guys could find each other with the way things are marked on the map in that airport. There's some issues that me and Stanzik and Allie had trying to find a Chick-fil-A in that airport. It was dicey and poorly labeled.
All you have to do is count, and it seems pretty easy. 30 for 30 podcasts have returned. Subscribe to 30 for 30 podcasts right now in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. And it's brought to you, what a transition, by Delta, where it's our goal to connect your life in the air to your life in the ground.
Connect me with Chick-fil-A.
Done. Coming up, Kevin, just not on Sundays. Kevin Durant will have to leave Golden State in order to get validation. And he's not the real MVP of the NBA Finals. You can book it.
To give batters a different look, pitchers throw a changeup.
Your idea of a different look is sunglasses.
That's true.
But La Quinta Inns and Suites is really taking the different look thing to a new level.
Definitely a major league makeover, starting with a bolder, brighter lobby full of comfortable spaces to let you settle in.
Or chill out in front of a big flat screen like Wingo would.
Oh, you know it. It's a changing La Quinta look to help you get in the zone and look sharp when you hit that big meeting.
Prepare to win at business with La Quinta Inns and Suites.
Book now at LQ.com.
This is an interesting phenomenon I stumbled upon, that if you just add "book it" to the end of any phrase, the shorter the better, it makes it immediately a hot take.
Owen says, Jaguars win the Super Bowl, book it.
I like Tim's poutine.
Book it. Man, that's a strong point from Tim.
That is. LeBron is Toronto's kryptonite.
No.
Book it.
I like Steve's better. Josh Allen will break a table before the season starts. # Bills Mafia. Book it. Completely forgot I've got to read right here.
Well, then I'll give you some time by saying, hey, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
Yeah,
And now you got something?
Yeah, no, I got something for you guys, and it's good, too. You're really going to like it. SportsCenter brought to you by Ultimate Software. In business, just like sports, success comes down to having a talented team and a strong game plan. And that's where Ultimate Software comes in with HR, payroll, and talent management technology that puts your people first.
All right, so you recovered from that. Nicely done. It is time for Book It, ladies and gentlemen, on Golic and Wingo. Again, this is a creation of Mike Golic Jr. that no matter the take, it's a lot saucier if you just add "book it" toward the end of it. So you're going to read them off, and we're going to decide whether or not we're going to book it. I'll go first, and then Senior will follow up.
Yes. Give you guys a chance to book it. Again, the hot take multiplier right now. Ooh, yeah.
All right, we got it. What do you got?
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, here we go. LeBron James will win the Finals MVP. Book it?
I would love to book it, but he's not going to get it. I mean, I would love to book it. His numbers are ridiculous.
Go ahead and do it then.
His numbers are ridiculous. 37.7, 9 assists, 10.7 rebounds a game, shooting 53% from the floor, but he's not going to get it. I can't book it.
I feel the exact same way. I would love to book it, but there's no way I can book this, especially if they get swept or just get one win. I mean, if it went to 7 games and they were contested games and all good games, maybe. But no, he is not going to get the Finals MVP.
Yeah, you guys are right. I can't book this one either, but I will say we have to see Kevin Durant is going to win the Finals MVP. You can book that right now.
Yes.
And I'm more curious, and we'll find out later on, we've got him coming on in the 9 o'clock hour, if this Finals MVP will count in Stu Gotz's personal record book, which is the most important question in all of this.
Is
all
it?
right. It is.
Okay.
All right, next up. Kevin Durant will only get the validation he craves if he leaves Golden State and wins a title elsewhere. Book it?
This is a difficult one because I don't know how much validation he actually needs.
Well, just as a backdrop here, Durant recently spoke to The Athletic about his decision to join Golden State and said, at the time of my career, I didn't know how other people felt about my game, and I knew that I was pretty damn good, and I knew I worked hard, and I needed validation from my peers, teams, and GMs, people that are really into the game, to really help me feel good about myself and feel confident and let me know that what I was doing was working.
Okay, so he's gotten that validation now, though, right, from being with the Golden State, so I'm not going to book it. I'm not booking that because I feel like he's already got it.
Dad?
I can't book this one. Now, validation, are you talking from his peers, Mike, or from fans?
All the above.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to need that. No, I don't think he needs to do that. I'm sorry, I can't book this one. I know we want to play the book it drops, but I just can't do it. I think he's going to go down as one of the all-time greats without a doubt, and it'll be validated. He'll have championships, and I think he's going to be just fine.
I think we need to have Golic Jr. come up with saucier takes. Book it. Let's go. Hit it.
You can book it.
I'm actually going to book this one because every indication we've gotten from a guy that ran 5 burner accounts even after that first finals. But in all seriousness, he was very forthright about his feelings in this. And to me, that shows a guy who understands, and I think in a very different way, that validation like that only comes from within. And so if he's not personally satisfied, even with all the accolades, you guys know this, you can do a lot and get acclaim from the outside. It's not going to matter when it comes to the bottom.
All right, you got another one? Let's go.
I got another one. All right, the Caps will blow their 3-1 lead in the Stanley Cup final. Book it?
Oh, this would be so mean to do to all my friends that are Caps fans, but they're only 7-5. Yeah, book it! Wow.
You can book it.
Book it! The Caps are going to cap. I'm sorry. I feel bad. Mike?
Wow, there's no way I can book that. I think they can win one more of these games, even though a couple of sporting goods places are already, offering championship jerseys, which are horrible out there. But I can't see him blowing this lead. It's only happened once before in 1942. I don't see it. I can't book this one.
I did this just for the sounder. I just want to be clear.
I know you did.
I wanted to play the sounder.
Only thing I'm booking is parade tickets. All right, we got the last one real quick here.
Book it. Here we go.
Winning the Triple Crown in horse racing is meaningless because American Pharoah did it in 2015.
No way, no chance, no how. As Tirico said, only the second time in 40 years. Nope, not doing it. Not booking it.
I can't book that one either. I just can't. It still means something. Maybe not as much. Maybe like the second time Russell Westbrook, got the triple doubles, average of the season. It didn't mean as much as last year, but it still has meaning. So I'm not booking.
Thank you. Book it. We didn't even vote Russ NBA.
No.
We didn't even vote him All NBA first team.
Hard out. You book it. You need stronger takes next time. Coming up, a college football player can make $5 million in the NCAA's. Okay.